Driver than me.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I've invited Paul, my accountant, across. For anyone who's not seen him before, Paul, if you'd just quickly like to introduce yourself before we move on to more details.
I trade as PBT Tax Solutions, which is an accountancy business doing tax returns. And I have specialized over the last 15 years in the private hire and taxi industry. I have a product called www.taximanager.co.uk that I'm sure we will be referring to, which is a system that I'm quite proud we introduced 15 years ago before I think any of the Treasury officials thought about making tax digital, which I think is today's subject.
Spoilers. So we did an interview a while back about self-assessments, but now everyone's talking about making tax digital. So can you break down exactly what that means in kind of plain English?
Okay, so the government have decided after several years of trying to get a system off the ground that they want everybody to embrace recording their income and their expenses in some form of digital manner. Um, and they are now making this law, and starting from April next year, the new system comes in.
Right. So what's the point of HMRC doing this? Why are they trying to force our hands to do this? What's the goal?
Um, it's a difficult one to answer. They have always wanted the self-employed to improve their record keeping. So it's like twisting somebody's arm and saying, we don't want you to be recording things on the back of a fag packet. We want you to start putting things in an assembled order, and we want to know exactly where you're up to, not once a year, but four times a year. And whether there's wider implications, we might cover in any further discussion.
Right. Okay. So who's it affecting? Is it every single self-employed person? Is the earnings a certain amount, or is these thresholds or anything like that?
Yes, yeah, it's affecting everybody who's self-employed,
Right.
and anybody who rents out properties.
Oh,
And
okay.
and the government have set at the moment a threshold of anybody who grosses 50,000 or over
Right.
has to join the Making Tax Digital Party from April next year. The following year, they're lowering the threshold down to 30,000,
Right.
and then the year after that, it's down to 20,000. And then they are considering legislation as they are referring at the moment, which might mean that they will bring it down again because the original threshold was 10,000 and above.
Right.
So they've broken it down 50, 30, 20. I'm guessing that in 3 years' time, they will be saying anybody that's earning over 10,000. And
So
they
that
just want the information.
so that's 26, 27, 28.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Okay.
yes,
That's interesting that they're going to keep lowering it down. So pretty much any private hire driver is going to end up making tax digital.
correct. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's something that's unavoidable. And it's been, I think they've had to phase it in a little bit because the accountancy profession would just spiral out of control if the original idea of 10,000 and above had been implemented straight away, because that just would be
That would be
an
thousands of people,
administrative,
wouldn't it?
yeah, nightmare. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I've heard, or people are saying, that you'd have to use MTD compatible software and an official app with HMRC. Is that the case? Is that how it's going forward?
I'm not aware of any official app from HMRC. What HMRC are saying is they want this information transferring across to them. And what is happening at the moment, there are plenty of firms writing a bridging software. So whatever system a driver is using, and let's use the simple spreadsheet, the figures from those spreadsheets need to get across to the revenue, and that will be through some third-party software, which is, as they are all saying at the moment, under construction. So here we have a system that's coming into place from April, which is law. And yet, if anybody wishes to contact any of the software provisions, they are all saying it's under development. So it is a case of watch this space.
Right, okay. Uh, So there's no particular approved app at the moment, and a lot of things are saying they're under construction, yeah?
Yes.
Right, I've heard it's quarterly. So every 3 months we're meant to submit. I mean, I think that's it's a pretty tight gap compared to what we're used to at the moment. Is that right? It's
Yeah.
every 3 months?
It is. So if you think about if you have a look at what they're saying is um, from the 6th of April 2026, the first period will be up to the 5th of July. And you then have um, just over a month to get that information into HMRC. And then each quarter builds, so it's cumulative. So if, for argument's sake, let's keep it simple, somebody's done £15,000 worth of sales income in the quarter to 5th of July, and then the following quarter they've done 10,000, then the revenue will want a cumulative figure, so the two quarters added together, and then sending across to them. Likewise, whatever your expenses are for those two given periods, they will want it on a cumulative basis. And then when we get to the third quarter, they will add that on. And then when they get to the fourth quarter, you will you will have a year's worth of information. Then they will be looking at the whole range of income and expenses to be formalized and submitted. And that's when there can be some adjustments. So accountants need to do adjustments at the very end for various reasons. And that gives the opportunity for what is a fifth visit to get everything calculated and then sent into HMRC.
Right, well, I imagine with all that extra accountants and some accounting fees will be going up across the board.
Yes, without a doubt. I've been speaking with other accountants, and they have said because they are being forced to look at their clients 5 times a year as opposed to once, it's 5 times the work. So the fees we expect will rise quite dramatically. For those people who are in businesses that are VAT registered, this probably isn't quite as big a problem because they are already having to submit VAT returns every quarter. So their accountants will have already built in the cost of submitting the VAT returns. But we've got a whole new range of taxpayers who are way below the VAT limit. The VAT limit's 90,000. So there's not many taxi drivers hitting 90,000 turnover.
To be
So
able to VAT
it's
register.
going to those self-employed people operating under 90,000. it will be a culture shock because they will have to address what they need to do well, on a quarterly basis.
Right. So I've seen a lot of things going around that a lot of apps that people are using for income, such as Uber Eats and Uber, Bolt, and all this, that HMRC is going to see real time that the earnings that people are making from that. Have you heard anything like that?
No, no, because unless um, unless Uber Eats and Bolt have got a system which directly links their app to HMRC on the taxation side of things, um, I'm not aware that that is out there. Um, you might know different, but I'm not aware that the user, the Uber Eats user, the Bolt driver, yes, they can access on their app or their account their schedules of income, but from there, I am not aware of any way that that will get transferred across to HMRC because, as I was mentioning, you've
That's
got to
real
have
time, yeah? In
in real
real time.
time. You've got to you would need bridging software, and it won't be in real time that they will be looking at your income and expenses because it will fall into this category of these specified dates when that information goes across, and that will not allow them effectively to have access into an app of any sort.
So it's one way feeding straight from
It
it's
is.
not both sides. That's pretty much what I was getting at with that
Yeah, yeah.
question.
I think there's a paranoia out there that there's Big Brother that will be looking at the information on your phone, and just like we've had in the news, if you buy certain cars from certain countries, um, don't have any sensitive conversations going on because they're listening to you.
Right, yeah.
I think that's possibly
Possibly where
OTT.
that span from a bit. Well,
Yeah, but
Uber
no,
have, coincidentally, Uber have just started shutting off drivers in the last week who have not
right?
filled in that tax number that we've all got. They
Yes,
who have not
yes,
filled in the tax number for the self-employed. So when they
yeah,
try to log on, it instantly logs them off saying you must
yeah,
update this
yeah,
because Uber has now announced that they are submitting drivers' earnings. I think it's yearly though. I don't think it's going to be
yeah.
quarterly or
Yeah, I think you see, going back to my old days in HMRC, um, all these large organizations um, that have information at their fingertips, HMRC has always been able to say, right, we want a list of all your um, drivers, we want a list of all the names and addresses of the drivers. Um, Not necessarily how much they've earned, but they would like to know who's out there, and then they would do their own sifting to see whether or not these people were actually registered.
right.
What's been taken out of that is the power has been put on the local authorities to follow a set procedure, and as you probably know, since I think it was 22, this uh, 9-digit number is a requirement that can only be obtained from the driver if they are registered with HMRC.
Yeah.
So it's like the local authorities have been forced into doing their own compliance checks, and that's what you're finding.
What happens, Paul, if drivers don't go digital in time? Are the penalties straight away? Is there a grace period? Are they expensive?
Well, you've got to always think about legislation. If you go in a bus lane, you're going to get charged, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're going to get fined. whether or not in the early days you would get a letter to say you've been in a bus lane, you shouldn't have been there. Next time we'll fine you. It'll be the same. Legislation will be there to say that there will be a penalty. Now, whenever there is a penalty from just looking at something simple like VAT, as well as not filing your tax return on time, it's a standard £100. So you could have somebody who has not sent in their quarters records. They've not sent in their final submission for their tax return. To me, that's £500 worth of penalties that
Wow.
somebody could be facing through just not being compliant.
Wow. And that of course would be all backed up by courts and
Yeah,
CCJs and
yeah, yeah.
bailiffs and all this type of thing.
Exactly, exactly. There's always an appeal procedure for penalties, but um, I think what will happen, there's got to be maybe a period of grace, but that will be down to HMRC to consider.
What can drivers start doing right now to be ready for MTD?
Well, thank you for the list of questions that you'd already sent me. Um, this is the one I was waiting to answer.
Okay.
I'm going to sound a bit big-headed now. I might have to put my uh, computer on widescreen, but um, I had this vision 15 years ago,
Right.
and this is before MTD had even been mentioned. And again, going back to my background, working for HMRC, knowing the taxi industry pretty much inside out, there were problems. And that's why Taxi Manager was evolved to make life easy. So what drivers can do is to be recording their entries of their income, their expenses, even if they are only going to be doing 25,000 turnover or 30,000 turnover, and they think, oh, I don't have to deal with this. Get into the habit of recording your income and your expenses almost on a weekly or monthly basis. And that's the only advice that I can give. And I know that with Taxi Manager that we created 15 years ago, it is a digital record held in the cloud. And so I can't really advocate much better because of the backup that we give and the the accountancy service at the end of it. But if somebody chooses to get their own Microsoft Excel and start recording everything, that's fine. That will be fine. Um, you've always got to keep the underlying records, receipts and things like that. But that will be something that a driver, taxi driver, private hire driver can do, but they will need to bridge those figures across through this third-party software on a quarterly basis over to HMRC.
So,
So
so
it's
realistically
not
speaking,
beyond.
realistically speaking, you've been ahead of the game with Taxi Manager for 15 years, and your
Yeah,
bridge is a lot smaller needed than most accountants.
yeah. So exactly. And what we're working on at the moment is we're having to integrate Taxi Manager to go across to HMRC. And one thing I want to be clear about is anyone that uses Taxi Manager or wants to use the 15-day trial, please do put entries in, and you'll see that there are options for income listings, expense listings, and have a look at the bottom where it's all totaled up. It will be the total figure, the running figure each quarter that would be going across to HMRC,
which
not
would
the
all,
individual.
which
Yeah.
also your particular software shows what I'm going to have to pay on taxes as well at that particular point.
That's exactly what we put that in place 15 years ago. So yes, you're correct. In that respect, we try and calculate to the best of our ability what we think a user's tax bill is likely to be. But yeah, it's ready made, basically. All we've got to do in the next 5, 6 months is get the software bridging, which we're currently, as I'm speaking, we're working on.
Under construction.
It's under construction. And the thing is, there are some huge companies out there, and I'm talking about huge companies, and you contact them like I've done, because you always want to see what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And you get so many riders on, well, it's all new, don't forget, it's this, that, and the other. And I think people are almost bracing themselves for last minute changes maybe that HMRC might bring out, but who knows? It's been a process going on now for a few years.
So do you think making tax digital will make things easier or harder in the long run?
In the long run, once a driver or a user of any software or however they're recording their records, once they get into the habit, and it's breaking these bad habits. I have to say, we have people at Taxi Manager, and they are completing everything. That they're completing everything.
Last minute.
Almost. Well, our year end that we're doing at the moment was 5th of April. There's still people who haven't even completed anything, because they'll do it last minute. And my admin records will tell me who are the last minute people. But these people will not be able to do that. So harking back to something my wife always says, handle a piece of paper once. So when you get your Uber statement, for example, you've got a figure, put it down electronically. And
We get
and
a
forget
weekly
about it.
figure from Uber telling
Exactly.
us.
Exactly. And you've got a nice breakdown there. Put it on a spreadsheet in Taxi Manager or something similar. And then once it's done, it's done. Every self-employed person, you think of somebody who's got a corner shop, they have to go to cash and carry. They have to get up early and stock shelves and what have you. That is part and parcel of being self-employed. And it's no different for a taxi driver that once he's finished his driving, he's still got the admin side that he needs to do.
Yeah.
And it is now, because it's less cash orientated, it's really simple. Because quite often, if somebody is working exclusively for the likes of Uber, they've got a statement that comes through digitally, which they can save, and then just put that information on something that is going to get passed over to HMRC
Well,
at the
that's what I
required
do with
time.
yourself. Once a week, I'll sit there and I'll update me mileage, me earnings, and all that on Taxi Manager, and it's very straightforward. I think I've been with you now.
Yeah,
Are we approaching 10 years? I
yeah,
think we might
yeah,
be, you know.
yeah, yeah,
Time
yeah.
flies, eh?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Right, so finally, what's one piece of advice you'll give people to calm worried drivers who are watching this?
It's not as big brotherish as people are fearing,
Right,
because they're not wanting to look at all your individual trips, all your individual runs, etc. That's not what they're after. What they would like is the information. At the moment, it has no bearing on paying tax earlier. There's no legislation at the moment to change that, but who knows in the future? Because you always look at the bigger picture, that once they've got information, will they then say, well, you know what? We could possibly get a bit of tax a little bit earlier, just like people on PAYE pay every month. But that is not part of this. The advice that I can give is re-educate yourself. If you're not doing it, do it now, because you've got 4, 5, 6 months to get used to it. and then it'll become a doddle, and you won't have to worry in the same way. And who wants to worry? You're worrying about trying to make a living. This is something that you can really deal with and then forget about, and just get on with your driving and running
Once
your
it's set
business.
up.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, Paul, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on and explaining it to my viewers. If people want to use Paul as an accountant or want to investigate in his software that's already digital, I'm obviously going to put a link at the bottom. So help yourselves to that, guys. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, Paul.
Nice talking to you again. Thank you.